It had been the longest 2 weeks of my life. Between visiting my mom in the hospital, keeping up with remote work deadlines, and juggling her insurance paperwork, I hadn't slept more than 5 hours a night. My return flight home was my one reprieve, a tiny oasis of silence, just me, a book, and the window seat I'd specifically chosen when I booked this flight. Seat 21A. Right side of the plane, window seat, just ahead of the wing. It gave me a perfect view and a small psychological edge over my flying anxiety. I'd always hated flying, but something about looking out at the clouds, at the vastness of it all, helped me breathe easier. I'd spent the extra $37 just to reserve it. Totally worth it. I nearly missed the flight thanks to a delay in airport security. I jogged toward the gate just as they announced the final boarding call for Group 4. Huffing and out of breath, I gave the gate agent a strained smile as she scanned my phone and waved me through. The narrow aisle of the plane was packed with passengers already crammed in, arms and bags sticking out, kids crying somewhere near the back. I sidestepped my way to row 21, pulling my backpack tightly against my side, and then I saw her. A woman in her mid-40s sat comfortably by the window in my seat, platinum blonde hair with dark roots, perfectly curled at the ends. A designer pink neck pillow hugged her shoulders, and she wore huge sunglasses on the plane. She was scrolling on her phone like she owned the place. Next to her, in the middle seat, was a teenage girl, maybe 16, with earbuds in and the look of someone who desperately wished she were invisible. I glanced at my ticket again. 21A. This had to be a mistake. "Hi there," I said politely. "I think you might be in my seat. I'm supposed to be by the window. 21A. The woman didn't even glance up at me. "Oh no, I switched. I need the window seat. I get motion sickness if I sit in the middle or aisle." My brows raised slightly. "I understand, but that's the seat I reserved. I'm a nervous flyer and I kind of need the window too." Finally, she looked up at me, her mouth slightly agape in disbelief, as if I had just asked her to give up her inheritance. "Wow, seriously? You can't just be a decent person for 5 hours? I'm asking nicely." "I'm not trying to be difficult," I said, keeping my voice steady, "but I paid for that seat. I need the window for anxiety." She rolled her eyes dramatically and threw her hands up in theatrical defeat. "You look young and healthy. I'm an older woman with medical needs. God forbid someone be accommodating these days." The teenager sank deeper into her hoodie, cheeks red with embarrassment. By now, a few people nearby had started to watch. I heard someone in the row behind us whisper, "Here we go." A flight attendant, noticing the holdup, approached with her practiced customer service smile. "Everything all right over here?" "She's sitting in my assigned seat," I explained. "I asked her to move, but she says she gets sick in the middle." "I do," Karen snapped. "I need to see the horizon. I'll get nauseous and ruin everyone's flight if I stay here." The flight attendant gave her a patient nod, then turned to me. "Do you have your boarding pass?" I handed it over. She scanned it. "Seat 21A. Yes, this is your seat." "Thank you," I said, already sensing what would come next. The attendant turned to the woman. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you'll need to move to your assigned seat. We can't allow passengers to switch without crew approval." Karen scowled. "This is discrimination. I'm asking for medical accommodation and now I'm being treated like a criminal. Wow, what happened to empathy?" "I can help you find your assigned seat, ma'am," the attendant said firmly. With an exaggerated groan, Karen scooted into the middle seat beside her daughter, muttering under her breath about entitled young people. I slid into my seat silently, set my backpack under the chair, and stared out the window, letting the cool surface of the glass calm my rising frustration. I could feel her glaring at me. I didn't turn. The plane hadn't even left the gate yet, and already I was caught in the middle of a Karen storm. But I didn't give in, and I wasn't about to start. I had booked that window seat for a reason, and something told me this flight wasn't going to be turbulence-free. Karen's muttering didn't stop for a good 10 minutes after she was forced to give up the window seat. It started with whispered complaints under her breath, loud enough for me to hear but quiet enough to feign innocence. "Some people just have no empathy." I hope he enjoys watching me throw up. I should have never paid extra if people are going to act like this. I didn't respond. I'd flown enough to know engaging would only make things worse. Instead, I kept my headphones in and stared out the window, pretending I couldn't hear her. But even with music playing, I could feel the tension. It clung to me like the recycled cabin air. We reached cruising altitude, and the seatbelt sign clicked off with a gentle ding. I hoped things would mellow out, but Karen had other plans. First came the aggressive shifting. She pushed hard against the shared armrest, claiming more than her fair share of the middle space. I pulled away slightly, not wanting to escalate things, but she kept creeping closer, elbowing me once, then twice, with deliberate adjustments. Next came the coughing. At first, it sounded like a normal dry throat, but after the 5th or 6th time, she turned slightly in my direction and gave this awful, exaggerated, ahem, ahem, ahem. I realized it was a tactic. I turned slightly toward her, removing one earbud. "Are you okay?" She smiled sweetly, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, just fighting nausea. I warned you I get airsick." "Maybe the middle seat isn't the best place for you then." Her smile vanished. "Maybe some people shouldn't be so selfish." I put my headphones back in before I could say something I'd regret. The teenager next to her looked like she was mentally trying to teleport off the plane. She gave me a brief, apologetic glance, mouthing sorry. I nodded slightly. It wasn't her fault. Her mother was determined to make the flight a war zone. When the drink cart came rolling down the aisle, I took the opportunity to flag down the flight attendant who had helped me earlier. "Hey," I said quietly, glancing at Karen. "Just so you're aware, she's been elbowing me and coughing in my direction. I'm not trying to escalate anything, but I thought I should mention it." The attendant gave me a sympathetic look. "Thank you for letting us know. We've had issues with her before check-in, too." That explained a lot. Karen, of course, ordered ginger ale and made sure everyone around her knew it was for her very delicate stomach. The flight attendant handed me my bottle of water and gave me a look, half apology, half encouragement. That's when I had an idea. While Karen was fussing with her tray table, I quietly angled my phone just right on mine. I turned on the video camera, no sound, no flash, and let it record. I wasn't planning to make a scene or post anything online, but if Karen kept pushing the line, I wanted proof I hadn't started it. 20 minutes later, Turbulence hit. The seatbelt sign lit back up, and the pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting light turbulence for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Please return to your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened." The plane jolted slightly. Karen gasped like we were in freefall. "Oh my God, this is why I needed the window seat. I can't handle this." She grabbed the armrest, clutching it like it was a lifeline. Then, to my shock, she reached across me, actually reached across my body, toward the window. "I need to see outside." "Ma'am," I said firmly, blocking her arm, "do not grab me." "I'm going to be sick," she shouted. Her hand touched my shoulder as she tried to push past me. That was it. I hit the flight attendant button. In less than a minute, 2 attendants arrived. One was the same woman as before. The other was a younger guy with an earpiece and the dead serious look of someone who wasn't about to tolerate mid-air drama. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "you need to remain seated and stop reaching across your row." "She's trying to see the horizon," I said, calm but direct. She grabbed my arm. Karen immediately flipped the narrative. "He's lying. He's been provoking me this whole flight. I have anxiety and motion sickness and he refused to help me," I asked nicely, "and he's been trying to record me. Look at his phone." I calmly reached for my phone and handed it to the male attendant. "You're welcome to review it. I've just been sitting here." The attendant glanced at the screen, then nodded. "Understood. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to come with me." Karen's jaw dropped. "You're moving me? What about him? He's harassing me." "Enough," the woman attendant said, her voice like steel. "This is your final warning. Come with us now or we'll be forced to report this incident when we land." Karen stood up so fast her neck pillow slid off. Her daughter followed silently, not making eye contact with anyone. As Karen stormed toward the back of the plane, several people watched in silence. A man across the aisle muttered, "Finally." The flight attendants returned a minute later, visibly more relaxed. The younger one leaned over to me and said quietly, "She's been moved to an open row. Let us know if you need anything else." I nodded. "Thanks for stepping in." He gave me a wink. "You handled that better than most. Trust me." As peace returned to row 21, I took a deep breath and looked out the window, finally able to enjoy the view I'd paid for. Peace. At last. Karen had been escorted to the back of the plane, and for the first time since takeoff, I could relax. The tension that had been building in my shoulders slowly drained away. I looked out at the clouds below, the way I'd originally planned, and let out a long breath. That window wasn't just about preference. It was about peace of mind, and Karen had nearly ruined it. But I should have known. Karen wasn't done yet. 15 minutes later, I saw her reappear near the front of the cabin. She wasn't alone. The male flight attendant, tall, stocky, with that unmistakable "don't test me" vibe, was walking just behind her, arms crossed. Karen, now minus her neck pillow and with frizzed-out hair, was speaking in hushed but furious tones. Her daughter trailed behind, clearly wishing she could vanish. They weren't coming back to sit near me, thankfully, but Karen stopped at the galley area near the cockpit, close enough for me to overhear snippets. "She filmed me, without permission. That's harassment. He invaded my space. This is why women don't feel safe flying alone." The attendant spoke calmly, but firmly. "Ma'am, we've reviewed the footage. He was quiet. You reached over him and touched his shoulder. He didn't retaliate or escalate. Your actions created a disturbance." She wasn't expecting that. Her jaw clenched, and her voice dropped to a hiss. "So I'm the bad guy now?" At that point, another passenger, maybe mid-30s, business casual, clearly fed up, stood and addressed her directly. "Lady, no offense, but we all watched what happened. You stole his seat, argued with the crew, and now you're playing the victim. Just stop." You could almost hear the oxygen get sucked out of the cabin. Karen turned to face him. "Excuse me? You don't even know the whole story." Another voice chimed in. "We do. We've been sitting here the whole time." That one came from the elderly woman 2 rows ahead of me. She didn't even look up from her crossword. Karen looked around and realized this wasn't going to go her way. The entire front half of the plane had witnessed her drama unfold, and now they weren't buying what she was selling. The male attendant gestured toward the rear again. "Ma'am, please return to your new seat. This is your final warning." Karen opened her mouth to protest, but then closed it, her face red with fury. Without another word, she turned and stormed back down the aisle, her daughter following silently behind. The man across the aisle gave a tiny clap. It spread, not a thunderous standing ovation, but a few scattered, polite claps, the kind of sarcastic applause that says, "Congratulations, you played yourself." I didn't join in, but I smiled. I couldn't help it. 10 minutes later, the same male flight attendant returned and leaned down next to my seat. "Just so you know," he said quietly, "we filed an incident report. If you'd like to submit your side for documentation, you can do it through the airline's portal. But as far as we're concerned, you handled everything perfectly." "Thanks," I replied. "I just didn't want to make a scene." "Well," he said with a half smile, "she did that all by herself." The rest of the flight was peaceful. People returned to their in-flight movies and podcasts. The clouds outside had thinned, and we were flying into early evening. Soft orange sunlight streaked across the sky. I finally got to enjoy the book I'd downloaded days ago. Even had time to finish a chapter. Somewhere behind me, Karen was undoubtedly stewing in her new middle seat near the toilets. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The window seat was mine. The calm was mine. And for the first time all day, I felt fully in control. It's strange how something as simple as a seat can become a symbol. To Karen, it was about control. For me, it was about peace. And for once, the world had sided with peace. As we began our descent, the captain made a light-hearted announcement over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Denver. Thanks for flying with us today, and special thanks to those of you who were patient during our more turbulent moments." A few passengers laughed. I smiled again, feeling seen. The fasten seatbelt sign chimed on. I buckled up, leaned my head against the cool window, and closed my eyes. The drama had come and gone, but the view, still beautiful. As the landing gear lowered and the runway drew near, I thought about what had just happened. Karen came onto this flight certain she could take whatever she wanted, and that no one would challenge her. But sometimes people push back. Sometimes calmly standing your ground is enough, and sometimes the whole plane notices. As the plane began its final descent, a quiet sense of relief settled over the cabin. The turbulence was long gone, and so was Karen, from my row at least. I stretched slightly in my seat, appreciating the calm. The clouds were clearing, giving way to patches of green and gold farmland below. Sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and lavender. I glanced to my left, the view from my window now unobstructed and tranquil. It was the peace I'd paid for and defended. From a few rows back, I could hear muffled voices, Karen again, though thankfully quieter now. Occasionally there was a dramatic sigh or a whisper too loud to be an actual whisper. Her daughter, from what I'd seen last, had switched seats with someone to get further away. Even she couldn't take any more of it. As we touched down, the wheels hitting the tarmac with a familiar bounce, a small ripple of applause went through the cabin. One of those polite, slightly ironic claps passengers sometimes do when they're just glad the flight is over. I joined in, mostly out of habit, but also out of genuine appreciation that we'd made it through without another Karen event. Once we reached the gate, I stayed seated to let the people in the aisle clear out. I wasn't in a rush. Plus, I didn't want to deal with any awkward confrontations if Karen tried to linger near the front. Then, something unexpected happened. As I reached for my overhead bag, I heard a voice, gentler than Karen's, tinged with embarrassment. "Hey, just wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier." I turned. It was Karen's daughter. She stood a few rows back, holding her backpack with one strap and looking awkward but sincere. "She's always like that," she added quickly. "This isn't even the worst I've seen. I didn't know what to do." I nodded. "You don't need to apologize for her. You didn't do anything wrong." She gave a small smile. "Thanks. Yeah, sorry." Then she disappeared down the jet bridge, leaving only the faint scent of teenage body spray and a world of unspoken frustration behind. I grabbed my things and stepped off the plane, feeling lighter than I had in days. The terminal was buzzing, people power walking, talking on phones, corralling kids. I made my way toward the baggage claim signs, already dreaming about getting home, taking a long shower, and sleeping for a solid 12 hours. Then, a gate agent at the counter called out, "Excuse me, are you the passenger from 21A?" I paused, surprised. Yeah, that's me." She smiled and handed me a small white envelope with the airline's logo on the front. "The captain wanted you to have this. Said it's a thank you." Inside was a $150 travel voucher and a short handwritten note. "Thanks for keeping your cool up there. Hope your next flight is much smoother. Captain Allen." I stared at the note for a second. I didn't expect anything like this. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't argued. I didn't threaten to sue or demand compensation. I just stood my ground. And apparently, someone noticed. The gate agent smiled. "Honestly, we wish more people handled situations like you did. She's not exactly a first-time flyer, if you catch my drift." I nodded. I kind of got that impression. I thanked her, slipped the envelope into my backpack, and headed toward baggage claim with a new bounce in my step. Outside the airport, the air was cool and still. I called for a rideshare, then leaned against a pillar while I waited, watching the buzz of people coming and going, Some arguing over missed connections, others excitedly reuniting with family. Life in motion. I thought back to that first moment on the plane, when I'd seen Karen in my seat and felt my chest tighten with dread. She tried to make me feel small, tried to make me give up what was mine with guilt and manipulation. And maybe, once upon a time, I would have. But not that day. That day, I kept my voice steady, my head clear, and my phone rolling, just in case. And even though it might have seemed like a small thing, a window seat after all, I walked away with something bigger than just a view of the clouds. I walked away with a reminder. Standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean yelling, arguing, or making a scene. Sometimes, all it takes is refusing to back down. My phone buzzed. The driver was pulling up. As I slid into the back seat and gave him my address, I glanced at the envelope again, still tucked into my bag. A flight voucher, a captain's note, and a story I'd never forget. Karen may have stormed off that plane, but I walked off with the real win.